Now, Cosatu has raised concerns following the release of the National Senior Certificate exam results this morning. The trade union says NSC matriculants have a smaller percentage pass rate. For reaction to the results, we are joined by Cosatu spokesperson Sizwe Pamla. He joins us virtually. Mr. Pamla, thank you very much for your time here on eNCA. I just want to know, first of all, before we discuss what you say about the NSC matriculants being mostly from, working class families, etc., just your overall feeling about this pass rate. I mean, it's the best since 2019.
Indeed, we are very happy, and we want to congratulate the teachers. We want to congratulate specifically our affiliated union, Cosatu, that has been very active in raising issues of concern on the ground, in ensuring that it keeps all of the political principals, but also senior managers on their toes when it comes to them attending to the issues that affect both teachers and students. But we also want to really congratulate those at the top, because we tend to criticize them when things are not going right. So now that we see some encouraging improvement, we have to encourage them and congratulate all of the political principals and the heads of departments and senior people at the top who have really delivered this result. And this is what we expect from those entrusted with the responsibility of leading.
All right, so let's talk about your, statement talking about the working class. You also speak about the fact that you're hoping that the budget, when it is announced, gives enough money and equally so to the education department. I just want you to elaborate on what you mean, because already we know every time the finance minister announces the budget, education is second after health to the largest chunk of the budget. So is it more maybe the problem of it not being used wisely after those funds are dispersed, or you think the problem is still with National Treasury?
Well, it's a combination of both of those issues that we have raised. For an example, if you look at the private school results and the public sector school results, they reflect the inequalities, the inequities that we've been talking about. The World Bank report that said South Africa is the most unequal country on the planet is not accidental. This system was designed to actually have those that you find at the top there at the top, and those at the bottom there at the bottom. So we need to address this if ever we stand a chance of actually closing this inequality. If our education system reproduces these inequalities, then our economy itself is going to reflect that. So we think at an education level, especially basic education level, this is where everything is to start. Because by the time you get to tertiary level, it's not just a question of making money available for this ones, which is something that we would like to see with the upcoming budget. But also, it's a question of when people matriculate, where do they go? Which doors are open to them? What opportunities and careers are they going to pursue? So if you look at the metric results, they are actually going to determine who are the winners and the losers of the future going to be. Because some people who bring all of the support that they've received in the private sector are likely to actually have the first peak when it comes to positions at higher education institutions. And those people who come from poorly funded schools at a basic education level are going to be struggling. Some of them are actually going to spend the next year trying to improve on their point systems and making sure that they get the necessary points so that they can access a higher education. That is really a big problem. So if we fail to address it at a basic education level, at tertiary education level, we can't fix it, and the winners at an economic level have already been decided.
And I completely agree with you, but isn't Cosatu part of the problem, Mr. Pamla? You are part of the tripartite alliance, so do you really speak to your counterparts in the ANC when it comes to budgetary concerns and all the concerns that you're giving us right now, or is this just lip service?
As I'm here with you raising this issue, we have a network school where we'll be discussing policy issues. We will be raising with all social partners, not just at a political level, but also at a social partner level. We have an upcoming ANC Lehutla, where we will also be raising these issues to ensure that we make our submissions, so that as and when the ANC and the government go to deliver the State of the Nation address and subsequent to that, the budget speech. They totally understand our position. They have our submissions. We actually came out of a 55th National Conference. These are some of the policies that we actually took to that conference to raise them. But also, in my opening statement, I said that our affiliated union, Cosatu, has been very active in actually holding accountable both people at a political level, but also administratively, to make sure that where resources are not spent, they speak out. Because in some instances, these resources are allocated, but you find that those who manage these resources, either they underspend or they spend them in such a reckless way that they do not necessarily deliver the desired outcomes. So we are very active in holding people accountable at political level, at a shop floor level with teachers protesting and making sure that they hold accountable those entrusted with the responsibility of leading, to make sure that they create a conducive teaching and learning environment in all of our schools.
Without taking away from the great results that have come out from the matric class of 2022, Mr. Pamla, you say that you hold people accountable. You took policies to the 55th National Elective Conference, and that Cosatu has been doing all it can to hold people to account. So I want to know from you, where is the problem then? We still have a backlog, for instance, with infrastructure, especially in schools where working class and poor people send their children. There's still huge inequalities when it comes to the education of this country. So where is the lull happening? Is it because you're not being listened to? There's no political will? People take up positions and then they just run with just having access to, public coffers?
Well, look, there are problems of the lack of political will in some instances. As you will see, for example, it's commendable if you look at the improvement that we see in KZN. It's not accidental.
Yeah.
This is a current administration in KZN. You can go back to the last three administrations. Education has been a priority issue in KZN for some time. The late King actually was one of the loud voices in support of education in that province. So when you see the political will, it is supported by the results. You look at the deployed MECs in that province when it comes to education. They are very active, they are very responsive, they are held to account by social partners, and they bring in stakeholders to actually come and participate. So these are instances where you see political will and you see the difference. But in some instances, it's not the same. In fact, you look at the underspending, you hear reports of underspending, and you realize that people are not responsive to the issues that are being raised by people on the ground. So there is a question of a political will in some instances where people are not responding. But also what we need to talk about when it comes to a government in general is that government is really badly designed. In some instances, you find that on infrastructure, people are given money or they sign up a contract to build these schools. Either they do show the work or actually they don't deliver. Now the question is, why would provincial structures or provincial departments in this instance actually pay individuals who have not delivered on the agreements that was signed?
Yeah.
So you see short work being done, and yet you hear that people have been paid, or work is not being done at all. So we do have problems with the public-private partnerships that are poorly managed, where people do not deliver on the mandate and the expectations that they promised. And as a result, these students are left on their own. But the issue of infrastructure is not really just the responsibility of the Department of Education. If you have students who have to cross rivers with no bridges, you sort of like discourage those people from continuing with their education. If you've got hungry school kids who are expected to actually perform at the same level with the people who actually were well fed, you are actually tying the hands of those students from actually honestly competing with their counterparts. So it's not a question of you have these provinces, for example, Gauteng, Western Cape, KZN. These are urbanized provinces, but you can't compare them with some rural provinces where there's poor infrastructure. So these are some of the issues that we need to correct them in terms of building an infrastructure that makes it easy for these kids to access education, including really attending to an issue that no one has been talking about for a long time, the issue of those kids who work on the farms. Because there are no school farms, and those kids are actually left on their own, and they end up dropping out of school and continuing the glorified slavery of working.